The Galen Hour, Season 2, Episode 3, Archaeology and its Contribution to Society. Joining us tonight are Dr. Jaime Awe, Associate Professor in the Department of Anthropology at Northern Arizona University, and Mr. Antonio Birdal, Galen University Adjunct Faculty and PhD student in the Department of Anthropology at Texas State University.
Good night and welcome to the third episode, Season 2 of the Galen Hour. My name is Diana Gomez-Perifit and I'm your host for the Galen Hour. With us tonight, we have a very exciting show planned. It's entitled Archaeology and Society. We will have with us two fantastic guests. We have Dr. Awe joining us and Mr. Antonio Birdal, who are archaeologists working in our country. We look forward to all of the good information that will be shared tonight. As you know, the Galen Hour is a production of Galen University. It focuses on academic excellence, sustainable development, and lifelong learning. It's always a pleasure to be here with you on Thursday nights. Welcome and good night. And we are looking forward to a really good discussion. So we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we will meet our guests and get into our show.
Galen University is offering a Masters of Science and Development Studies program beginning this spring semester, January 2022. For more information on how to apply, email us at admissions@galen.edu.bz or call us at 615-3129.
Welcome back to the Galen Hour. Yes, so we have with us our guests, and I'm happy to introduce them. We have with us Dr. Jaime Awe. Dr. Awe is the Associate Professor, the Department of Archaeology at the Northern Arizona University. Welcome, Dr. Awe. Dr. Awe is no stranger to Belize. He is one of our Belizeans who's dedicated his life to archaeology in Belize. We are so pleased to have him with us. Welcome. We also have with us Mr. Antonio Birdal, who's also an archaeologist and a student at this time, a PhD student at the Department of Anthropology in Texas State University. Welcome, Antonio. Gentlemen, it's so good to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
Right. So we got to talk fun stuff tonight. Archaeology is part of our culture, if I can call it that. Not archaeology, but the fact that we do sit in the Mundo Maya, and we do have Mayan sites within our country. We get the pleasure of visiting them and experiencing and talking about how important that ancient civilization is to our people and our country. Tonight, we have you with us to help us to put some perspective and to help the greener individuals like myself and our viewing audience to better understand why archaeology is so important. This week is Archaeology Week, if you call it that. I know Archaeology Day is Saturday, October 16th. And so this is quite timely, and it gives us even more reason to talk about archaeology and how it fits into Belize and the development of our country. So let us start there then. And let us talk about why do we care about archaeology? Why should we if we don't?
Well, you want me to go first, Tony?
Yes,
Well, archaeology is really critical and important to us as Belizeans. In many ways, it provides us with symbols of national identity. It brings pride because we can look back at our past and see that, from very early, the first Belizeans achieved one of the world's most accomplished civilizations. Going back to the idea that we use archaeology for a sense of national identity and who we are as a country, we see those symbols. When you look at the $2 bill, for example, the $2 bill, or all the bills in Belize have the jade head on I think it's on the top left side. The $2 bill has on one side stela from Nimli Punit. On the other side, it has images of Altunha, Shunantunich, Lubantun. If you look at the $5 bill, we have images of St. George's Key. So, when we look at archaeology, it really provides us with a sense of our past. And we highlight the three cultures that have impacted who we are today in the modern world. And those three cultures obviously were the Maya first, and then the Spaniards, and then the British.
Yeah. Good. Antonio, did you want to add anything to?
Archaeology is important also in terms of our economy in Belize. 1 in every 4 persons is employed in some way because of tourism, and a lot of tourists come because of our archaeological heritage. So it is very important in that regard.
Good, thank you. Yes, it is absolutely important. And we really and truly, as a country and as a people, part of our identity is the fact that we are part of the Mundo Maya. Is that correct to say? Yeah. And that most of us have our ancestors may have been Mayans, So, yeah. Well, not only Mayans, but we also have, as you all explained, Spaniards and the British. And African, and we can go on because we're such a melting pot. But I mean, the history is important. So then, how do we? Because a lot of what we're doing when we talk archaeology is looking back at who dwelled in the space we now live in, and what they left, what remains or sites or what was left for us to tell of their story or of their civilization. How does archaeology differ from history?
So historians generally rely on on the written record. I'll give you some examples. If we want to study the early incursions of the Spanish into Maya territory, the Spanish priests wrote a lot of information, and so historians can go to those published, records. The same in terms of those, that studied the whole, Battle of St. George's Key, as an example. There's been a lot of debate about that, but there is historical information. Archaeologists in general, not all of us, we also use the written record. I mean, the Maya were certainly very literate society, and they left a lot of monuments with inscriptions that today we can translate. So the Maya bridged that, that gap between, the literature or the written word and the unwritten word. But archaeologists also, pardon me, study prehistory. The information we have there before the use of writing. And so it allows us to tweak information that otherwise, would not be available.
Oh, great. Yes. So when we talk archaeology as well, we actually have tangible. Is that right for me to think? We're looking at some of the tangible things and speaking to them. And that also reads and tells us, because I do want to talk about the tangible and the intangible. How do we tell about an entire civilization and what their culture was? Because there's always that intangible part to cultures that we have to. Well, you'll tell us how do we know how families related to each other, or what was the relationship of the husband and the wife or the children, and to other people in the society, in their society. Yes. So yes. Great. So there is, and historians have their place definitely, but archaeology does also look at the actual sites and what's left for us to interpret. Okay, so Belize is a developing nation. How important a role does archaeology play for us as a nation that's growing, prospering, looking to how we can bridge gaps and make our country even better, for lack of a better word, but also doing so in a sustainable fashion and not losing the fact that we have such rich history and culture within our line, our boundaries.
That's a tough one. I think in terms of Belize being a tourist destination alone, it has a lot of impact on how we as a country can flourish in terms of the economic side of it. I think what we can do to keep it sustainable is also to look at what other countries have done and look at how their sites are managed and look at how they deal with the heavy flow of tourists coming in, and what we can do to make sure that maybe some of the damage that their sites face because of too many people coming, that we can put different policies in place to make sure it doesn't happen to us. For example, I know that like at ATM, it's a cave that a lot of people like to visit. And so there is a cap as to how many people are allowed to go in there every single day, just to make sure that there's not too much of a heavy traffic going in. Because while we love that sites are open for people to visit, human traffic also causes damage that might not be seen right away, but over time, if these sites are not kept and conserved, that can happen.
Yeah. If I can add that, so we have the economic impact that archaeology has on Belize as a developing country. Tony pointed out before, 1 in 4 Belizeans work in the tourist industry, either directly or indirectly. We know that, the archaeological projects that come to Belize in the summer, during the slow season, the tourist season, we hire a lot of folks in rural communities who work with us. We help to train tour guides. But also, I think we contribute, I mentioned before about national identity and a sense of who we are, but also our educational system.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid and I went to school in Belize, I learned everything that you could learn about British and European history and world history. And I never learned anything about the ancient Maya or, any about the even some of the more recent aspects of Belizean culture. And we've tried to change that. When the African and Maya studies was introduced into the curriculum in Belize, it gives Belizeans a sense of their own past and how that past, relates to global history in many respects. So I think archaeology is important because it provides that kind of information that then can be applied to the educational system.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I do believe it's taught more in schools now. I think my first introduction would have been in high school to talking about it. It was not in primary school in the early days, but I believe now students are beginning to learn earlier about our Mayan history, which is actually good. I mean, we visit all these sites. Most of our school trips would be to a Maya ruin, a Maya site, sorry. And, but there's just so much. We learned a bit of the numbering and how to write. So that there's just a tad bit of it that's introduced in our education system from early. And but maybe there's just room for so much more. And
Absolutely.
And let me give you an example of so much more. Often when we talk about archaeology in Belize, we tend to focus on the Maya just because, the massiveness of the ancient cities. You look at Cana, it's and the Castillo at Chinantenech, they're still the tallest buildings in the country. But often we forget that at many of our archaeological sites now, you go to Lamanai, we have the Spanish churches that we conserved. We have the sugar mill. If you go down to Stan Creek, we invested both, a research effort and then conservation effort to establish Stir Punch Sugar Mill. We still have plans for other projects. Some of the cemeteries, like the cemetery in Belize City, at the Arbora. but also there's one down at Happy Home, Forest Home, I think it is, in Toledo. But we're also, I have a couple of colleagues who are interested in looking at the Garifuna diaspora. And I think those aspects of our past are equally important, to us. So, yeah.
Yes. We talked tonight about our Maya civilization, but there are also other ethnic groups that influence our people and our country, indeed. And somehow they all seem to have a link to our tourism now, since we do sell our country for its cultural tourism that we can offer. I know with that now, recently we have new issues and rights of the Mayan people that we have seen arisen in our news. I don't know if it's a topic we want to touch now, and how do we actually do we have the right to just use a Maya ruin on a label? And how does our Maya people, what rights do they have to the ownership of these remains and remnants of their civilization and their people? I don't know if that's something you want to talk about, Dr. Awe. I know it's a kind of touchy situation for us as Belizeans, because we figure we all have a right to it, but I do know there's some it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think when we look at how heritage is managed all over the world, there are generally there are two major systems of management. There are more than two, but the two main ones are what we call unitary systems, and there are non-unitary systems. Let me explain what I mean. In unitary systems of management, it's where all archaeological resources are perceived to be the property of the people. And the people, include people from every different ethnic background. In the United States, to give you an example, they do not follow a unitary system. In the United States, you have different regulations for sites in federal lands, for sites in private lands, and for sites in state lands. Private sites on private lands, the private owner can do whatever they please with that. In Belize, we have a unitary system where all archaeological sites and everything that's archaeological belong to the people of Belize. And I think it's a good approach. And the reason why it's a good approach is that we're all Belizean. It's like in a country like Belize, how do you define, who's native? I've done my DNA. I can tell you I have 13% native indigenous heritage, genetically. And that would be true of most Belizeans. We all have, native Maya or Mesoamerican genetic heritage. And so it's understandable for us to follow a unitary system of management where these sites, we should all be proud of them. Whether you do have any native background or you do not have any native background, we can all share in the incredible achievements of the ancient Maya, while at the same token, we can also, share in the achievements of other members of our diverse ethnic, culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I like that explanation and putting things in perspective, Dr. Awe. I think when we are outside of Belize or move as ambassadors for our country, when we talk about Belize, we talk about all of the culture that makes us who we are. And no matter how we look or what our makeup is, we're proud of our Garifuna music. We're proud that we have Mayan sites and that we have that heritage to talk about. We're proud about the mestizo. Literally, we are a melting pot. I know it's a cliche and overused term, but when we talk about Belize, that's what we talk about. When we go away and people see different Belizeans, they're like, but you all look different. But you all maybe speak a Spanish accent, some more with a Garifuna accent, more with a Maya accent. But we all can talk Creole and we're Belizean, So you're so right in what you've said, and I'm happy we were able to to broach that subject. That is a whole topic for another conversation. Will probably never be a Galen Hour conversation, but it really is something that's new for us in our country and is on kind of becoming, it's gaining traction in terms of being paid attention to how do we actually deal with that new issue of who really owns the rights and how can we as a people use our heritage, what we believe is our heritage. So thank you for that. We will take a quick break, and when we come back, we want to talk about what happens when we dig in our backyard, or we're in a playground, or we're digging up the streets and we find items, and what do we do with them? And then looking at what some of these items that our archaeology club from Galen University has discovered when on field doing their field work this summer. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with the Galen Hour.
Our Galen University family urges you to take the stand with us to get vaccinated so that we can live healthier and safer lives.
I am Dr. Eve Aird, your provost. I took the COVID-19 vaccine for my husband's health, my family's health, and for my health, and most especially for your health, for the health of the Galen faculty, staff, and students, and for Belize's health. Join me in taking the COVID-19 vaccine so we can return to campus in September, confident that we are in a safe, healthy environment, and so that we can help Belize to recover from this COVID-19 pandemic.
Let's get together and save our country. Get vaccinated today.
I'm Dr. Sylvia Cattouz, Dean of the Faculty of Management and Entrepreneurship, and I'm fully vaccinated. I get vaccinated for the sake of my students, my family, and colleagues. I urge all our students and all of Belize to get vaccinated.
For the safety of our country, get vaccinated today.
I'm Sherry Gibbs, the Dean for the Faculty of Art, Science, and Technology. I got vaccinated because I trust the science, but because I also want to protect my family, my colleagues, and my students. I can't wait to see them again in September, so I encourage everybody out there to get vaccinated so we can protect each other.
I'm Coach Bernie Tarr, and let's play our role and get vaccinated.
For your future, for my future, for our future. Let's keep Belize safe.
Galen University, promoting academic excellence, sustainable development, and lifelong learning. Visit our website at www.galen.edu.bz and remember to follow us on our social media for more updates. Galen University is offering a Masters of Science and Development Studies program beginning this spring semester, January 2022. For more information on how to apply, email us at admissions@galen.edu.bz or call us at 615-3129.
Welcome back to the Galen Hour. We ended our first segment talking about what happens when we find items in our backyard and when we're digging and we find items that could be linked to our ancient civilizations or to our past or history of the people who inhabited our country, or ancestors basically. And so we wanted to share with you then some artifacts that were found by the Galen University Archaeology Club when they were working with Ms. Antonia Berdal this summer up in the San Antonio area. And I believe that Dr. Awe was also part of this field work. And so, gentlemen, we will look at them and you can tell us what these items are and what they were used for.
Got a duck.
Yeah.
Right. We're looking at the image of if you use just an archaeological term, we would refer to that as a biface. Biface just means that it's been worked on both sides, but it certainly may have functioned either as the point of a spear or a knife. It would have been hafted on a wooden handle, and you can use it to cut or, like I said, as a projectile to throw.
Yeah. Okay, so a knife or a spear.
Yeah, I think that was the second one that we found, because we found quite a few of those. And that is a tiny little arrowhead, you can see where it has the little notches in the side. Actually, I recall the exact moment when this was found because I was halfway across the courtyard and I heard one of the girls scream, and came back to check that they weren't hurt. But when they pulled this out, we saw what they had. Everything that they found, they were just super amazed by. But I think what they felt most powerfully is that somebody made this such a long time ago, and now they were holding it in their hands.
Yeah.
Yes, that must be a special feeling. What are these items made of? What is the previous spearhead and this one made of?
That is chert. It's a stone called chert. Some call it flint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, that's
Go ahead, Tony.
That's a bark beater fragment. A bark beater was used to make paper.
Oh.
Yeah.
The way they worked, they have a groove around. You can't see the groove because you're looking at the front of it that have all those lines. But it was attached to a handle like that, and you would take the bark off the tree, and then you'd beat the pulp out of the bark. And when you beat the pulp out of the bark, you're just left with the fibers, right? The sinewy fibers. And then the Maya would then take plaster and put it over the fibers. The fibers would help hold it together. And you remember when we used to use slates back, maybe when I was a kid, you guys probably never used slates.
I've heard of it.
So anyway, can you imagine if you had a whole bunch of these and you could open them like an accordion, and so there are all these leaves. And so the Maya would then write on them or paint on them. And so that's how they would, and so the bark beater was used to prepare the fibers for making the paper and all that.
Yeah. It is just amazing how intelligent and advanced the Mayans were. And we sometimes we think we are so advanced today, but when we think back to what they were able to achieve, it's always amazing when we hear. Do we have any others? Okay.
That is a shell bead or a shell adorno. I think this was found on the second to last day. Because of the area that we're working in, it was a very thick layer of artifacts. And, we thought that it was never going to end. And then for a while, we didn't find anything more. And then right on the floor, this little bead was there, and it's in the shape of a star, and it's made from shell.
Marine shell too.
Marine shell. So
that conch shell from the Caribbean.
Yeah. So that also shows you the distance of trade interaction among the Maya.
Yes, definitely. Looking at these artifacts then makes us ask the question: how do we know where they traveled to, who they interacted with? That's one of the things I wanted to for us to talk about. But let's look at a few more of these, and then we could come to that question.
This is a ceramic bird head. You can see the beak and the eyes. And this was part of something much larger, but this is the only fragment of it that we found.
Yeah, and it looks, because we have found, similar kinds of artifacts at other sites, it looks like the head of either a curacao or a turkey. Mm-hmm. And often they would make their ceramic vessels look like these, animals, especially the artifacts that they were used as incense burners or sometimes even as musical instruments.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was one of our favorites. This is an ocarina. It's a fragment. The head, of course, is missing, but it's a woman holding on to her child, and behind it is the mouthpiece, and there are two holes that you can use. So when you would play the ocarina, you can change the notes in it. This was one of the favorites for that summer because we did not know what it was until we turned it over. So, and it was just amazing. And according to Dr. Awe, this motif is seen quite frequently, but this may be the one of the larger of this particular motif. This was the fragment of a large Oya that's the rim and the neck and a part of the body. This one took us, I think, about 2 or 3 hours to actually clean and take out intact, more or less.
What is an Oya?
An Oya is a large jar would mostly have been used for like storage.
Okay. Yeah, those are some fantastic findings. I feel excited looking at them. I can just imagine how our students reacted. So go ahead. Oh, there are more. Sorry, there are more.
This is structure B6 in Courtyard B, and this is one of the structures that the girls excavated and clean. And you can see that there's some lines of cut stones, and there's also very well-preserved plaster that is still intact. It looks like it was made yesterday. And this was the area where all the artifacts that we saw came from. And the architecture in this area was pretty bizarre. But this came after we had a lot of rain this season, and every time it was clean and we wanted to take a picture, the rain came down and chased us all away. So as soon as we got it more or less looking clean, we quickly took a picture. The girls did all the work. They took lots of really good notes. Some of them did a lot of nice drawings, and we hope to revisit this particular area again because believe it or not, there's still some work to do.
I believe. I believe. So, well, this is St. Antonich, and this is one of the sites that we can see a lot at. So there is still more to excavate. There's still more, a whole lot more.
Yeah, at least another 10 lifetimes. I'd like to live till I was 1,000 years old just so I could continue this kind of work. The area where the Galen students were working with Tony is a residential complex. It's we know that the people that live there were certainly among the elite, not the top elite who were the rulers, but certainly well-to-do families, extended family, because the architecture, the photos that Tony showed you. The buildings are really well made out of big blocks of cut stone. And the types of artifacts that we find around there are also, artifacts that you tend to find in upper level households. So that area is only about 300 yards from downtown Shenantonich, so to speak.
Yeah.
Man, this is just so amazing. When we look, we see a couple sites and we figure, oh, this is it. And we're probably walking sometimes over unexcavated portions of that, can you call it a city? Would it have been a city? Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
A city, yeah. But there's just so much work still to be done in our country. I'm really, Galen really does offer a crucial opportunity to our people and our students when we offer anthropology, but also archaeology as a degree at our institution. I know the students that we have engaged with are, like you said earlier, Antonio, very excited about it.
Yeah.
And I think all students who go through the anthropology degree program come out, and that's one of the most memorable times of their program.
Absolutely.
So that is good. But you spoke just now, Dr. Awe, about the residential area, and probably it was home for some of the more elite members of the city or town city. And it brings me to a question. I really do want to ask this. We are a developing nation as we are now, Belize. But back in our days when we had a booming Mayan civilization going, were we a developing nation, or were we kind of a good metropolis where things were happening and everybody was thriving with not as much struggles as we have today? Were we a developing nation state, or were we a New York City?
Good question.
Yeah. So some years ago, David Pendergast, who worked at Altunha and at Lamanai, published a paper, and he referred to Belize as the center and the edge of Maya archaeology. And I like to use David's analogy because, in so many ways, he's right. Belize and the Maya of Belize, the ancient Maya of Belize were certainly at the center of many of the important developments in the Mundo Maya. In some cases, they were at the edge of certain things. But in terms of the development of the civilization, the cities of Belize were not passive consumers. They were, at the forefront contributors to the development of Maya civilization, going back to 1000 BC, and today, and at the peak of Maya civilization, cities like Caracol, Lamanai were some of the largest, Maya cities of their time. Belize exported many goods to the rest of the Maya world, salt from the Caribbean coast, cacao, because of so many rivers that we have, and Belize being such a good place to grow things like cacao. Flint or chert, Belize has some of the best chert in that area between Belize district and Orange Walk district. And flint to the Maya was like steel today. So, Belize was at the center and at the edge because we were on the border of the Caribbean Sea.
Oh, I love that. We're center and edge. I think I'll use that as something when people ask me to describe things, when I believe that we're center and edge. It sounds really good. And it is. Yes. So I wanted to ask before we move on, and I forgot when we were talking about the students, what are, for new novices coming into the archaeology field, what are some of the absolute don'ts and what are some of the do's? So when you're digging or excavating.
Yeah. One of the major don'ts is if it's not, when we excavate, we set up units. And we are trained to excavate inside the unit because we can document the context. We can take photos and measure everything going down. So if it's not inside the unit, we tell our students, leave it there. Because if you pick something up and you bring it to me and look what I found, like it's nice, but you just removed it from its context. So now that part of the story is lost for good. What else? One of the things that we try to tell them is take lots of notes. Everything that you can think of that you want to write is important because there may be something that that I miss because I have to overlook everyone else's work, but they're the ones doing the excavation, and they may also have their own perceptions as to what it is that they're doing, and having different voices and different interpretations really helps for sure. And also, when in doubt, ask. There's no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to archaeology. So even if it's for the 100th time you ask me, is this important? What is this? What was this used for? I always tell them, ask. When in doubt, ask, because archaeology is destructive. And once you take it out, you can't really put it back in. So.
Yeah. We have a little rhyme that goes with it. It's when in doubt, check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Always ask, as Tony pointed out, and record, because nobody will ever be able to replicate what you do. So we write notes, we take measurements, we photograph things. Always record.
Yes. So outside of the classroom, so if I were to happen upon, I'm casually doing something, I happen upon something that looks like it is linked to archaeology and to a site. What do I do? I'm not in class where you're there to tell me. lots of our people this probably happens with lots of our citizens and visitors as well to our country. What do we tell them if they come across items?
That is a good one. Ideally, we would like for them to leave things in place, once again, for context. But we know that sometimes people will pick things up. I mean, you cannot really dig anywhere across the country, whether it's for a foundation of a house or you're doing farming, and you come across things. You can just be walking in the bush or walking in the river and you spot things, and human nature, people pick things up. What we recommend for people to do is to get these items registered so that they can have their own private collection legally. What this does is it lets us know what we have in the country. These pieces that they find get a unique license number, and we document what they have. It safeguards the piece, and it safeguards them as well from illegally having something. And if for some reason it goes missing or stolen, then we have a record of it, and then it's easier to track down and trace. But ideally, we tell people to leave things where they are. I mean, but if they're in some immediate danger, then, you know, if you can save it, try to document as best where it's from, take pictures where it was found, so at least there's some kind of context with it.
So does this mean then that if I come to Belize and I'm visiting and I find something in Belize, does that give me the right, because I found it, to document it and own it?
Well, we don't really say own. We say you can possess it because you become the steward of that piece. It belongs to the entire country of Belize. It belongs to everyone. You are simply the caretaker of that piece. You are responsible to keep it safe. And you do so legally by getting a license to have it. What it does not mean is because you have a license for one piece that you can go out and hunt for more. That is not something that we encourage. But we understand that across the entire country, people will come across pieces in some way. And this way, if they get a license, then maybe it will encourage them to keep it. They are the ones who are now a steward of a part of Belize's history. And maybe then they will not want to sell it. That way, this piece does not leave the country. So once more people get licenses, then other people will realize that no, that one, you can possess these pieces legally. It's best that these things stay in the country and don't leave, and that the Institute of Archaeology, for example, will not go and confiscate your land because, you know, you found one little piece on it, because that sometimes still tends to be one of the rumors that people think in Belize.
Dr. Awe, this makes me think of our jade head and the story of, because if I'm not mistaken, it had left the country. Does it belong to us?
Ever since it was found, and before that, it belonged to Belize. The jade head, sometimes we will make loans of artifacts for exhibits and museums around the world. Many countries do that. In fact, Egypt, to give you an example, the tomb contents of King Tut, or Tutankhamun, has traveled all over the world on exhibits. And what Egypt does is that it charges a fee for these loans. Belize does the same thing, Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, all the different countries where complex civilization developed. So the jade head has gone out a couple of times on international exhibits, but it comes back to Belize and in fact remains in Belize today. In many ways, we often look at the jade head as the crown jewel of Belize. It's a very unique object. It's one of a kind. No other Mundo Maya country has ever found anything, that comes close to it. So we guard it, very jealously. So yeah, the jade head is very much an object for the Belizean people to be proud of.
And we are, and it's all over our money, as you had said earlier. What does the jade head say about our civilization and the Mayans that were in Belize, inhabiting our piece of the Mundo Maya?
Well, it goes back to that statement that I made about Belize being at the center and the edge. We have produced so many unique things that have to do with Maya civilization. The jade head is one of those. Belize was a major exporter of salt, to give you an example, that was produced in the Toledo districts and along the coast of Belize that was shipped inland. Belize also exported to other Maya, communities in Guatemala and other, in Mexico, many of the marine products. The 20 showed that little conch shell star. We know that they were exporting marine shell to the Petén from as far back as 900 BC. Sites like Caracol were major political players in the past. They engaged in war against the other major powers at the time. Places like Tikal, right? We have every good reason to be proud of our ancient heritage.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So all of our sites are special, and there's a mysticism about when you enter some of the when you go into the ruins and you look into what used to be the tombs. That's what I'm trying to say. I know there's a new portion just excavated on at Sunanta Nature. We get the opportunity to look in and see, and it's actually very intricate and very interesting. But there's that the awe of, oh my God, who lived here, and we're actually where people used to traverse and sleep and live. If you were to advise people who want to know, if I'm coming to Belize, I have one shot to see one Maya to go to one Maya site, which one would you recommend?
Wow. It's such a loaded question.
Oh, I know.
I know. People always ask me, what's your favorite Maya site? And it's like, they're all very, they're all unique. It's like, if you look at Belize today, Belize City has, its own flavor. San Ignacio is special in its own way. And so is Punta Gorda or Dangriga or, Orange Rock and Crows Hall. They share a lot of similarities, but they also, like I said, have many things that are unique to them. I think that it would depend on the amount of time you have. You don't have much time. Let's say that's why a lot of the cruise people might end up going to Altunha. If they have a bit more time, they could, for the overnight tourists, they might, be able to hit Lamanai or Caracol. Or if you're traveling through from the border of Mexico all the way to Guatemala, you might stop in San Ignacio and see Cajalpech and Xunantunich.
That's my favorite, but I'm biased with Cajalpech just because it's where I've done most of my work. It's I live nearby, so I used to play hide and seek there as a kid. I probably shouldn't have, but for me, Cajalpech has a special place in my heart because it's architecturally very unique. It's a very small, cozy, but a very intimate site. And sometimes you can be the only person there for several hours. All the sites that I've been to in Belize are wonderful, and all of them have something unique about them. But Cajalpech will always be my number one.
Imagine being able to say you played hide and seek in a Maya, on a Mayan site in Belize. That's just, not anybody can say that. So not all of us who live in Belize can say that. So we're special. What we have to offer, what we contribute to our world in terms of the Mayan civilization, and what the sites we do have that we protect so dearly is really important. It is awesome. for us. We know it has certainly been part of what has helped our economy and our tourism. And so it's vital for that reason, but also for lots of other social and reasons.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So gentlemen, we're winding down to wrapping up our session. There's just so much that can be said when we start to touch the Mundo Maya and what we in Belize have to offer. But I wanted to give each of you an opportunity to give some last words on archaeology in Belize and,
Okay. I think it's important, especially for Belizeans to be involved. And I think that's why it's important what Galen does. The experiences that I've had with Galen students over the past has allowed me to see archaeology through their eyes. And I will always recall one of them, Julia Arzu, who told me that the reason she wanted to do archaeology is because she has read a lot of history books written by other people. She wants to be the one that will someday write the book. And by doing archaeology, it gives you a hands-on experience. It gives you a tangible experience in being able to uncover history on your own, to interpret it as you go along. And as the girls told me this summer, they are touching something that someone made a long time ago, and it makes it real. When you can touch something like that, it cements in your head the importance of protecting our cultural heritage. So for me, I think getting a lot more Belizeans involved is important to the future of safeguarding what we have.
Thank you.
For me, one of the things that I really like about archaeology and about the work that I do is that archaeology provided me with this incredible opportunity to contribute to my country, the development, as well as knowledge about our past, to the educational system of Belize. That I have been able to change my situation, where I went from a student that never learned anything about Belize's ancient past, to a position where now I've been able to contribute knowledge of that past. I also think that, as Belizeans, we really are blessed. I think we're, are in an incredible and special position in Central America, because when we look at our very diverse culture today and the contributions that each of the ethnic groups have made to who we are as a country, we all speak Creole, right? That was developed, out of Belize City and the Creole population there. But everywhere you go in Belize, we speak Creole. Our national music is essentially Garifuna, so it comes from the Garifuna culture. The Punta music. But our cuisine has, certainly benefited from all the other cultures, whether it's, the Maya and all the things we make from corn, or from the more recent immigrants like the East Indians, even the Chinese, and other groups. Belize is really special. And being able to do archaeology in that country is certainly very near and dear to me.
Thank you, Dr. Awe. Thank you for your time with us tonight. We do appreciate the dedication you've given to our country and to archaeology in Belize. We're happy that Belize is still home, that we'll one day see you back home for good. But thank you. Antonio, all the best. I know you're on you're doing the tough part, but we do thank you for being part of faculty at Galen University and for your commitment as well to archaeology in our society. Gentlemen, it was an absolute pleasure. If we didn't know before, we do now know Belize is special, and it is center and edge.
The edge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good night. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with our wrap up.
Galen University Film and Media School is offering a new master's class in script writing for video. Classes will be held on Saturdays from 9 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock noon from October 30th to December 11, 2021. For more information on how to register today, email admissions@galen.edu.bz or call us at 614-6415. University is offering a Masters of Science and Development Studies program beginning this spring semester, January 2022. For more information on how to apply, email us at admissions@galen.edu.bc or call us at 615-3129.
Welcome back to the Galen Hour. That was an absolutely exciting 2 segments, our third show talking about archaeology and society. We were reminded of how special we are as Belizeans and as a country. We better understand why archaeology and or Maya sites and what we have to offer is so important to our economy, but as well as to our people and our heritage. We know that we are center and edge. I absolutely like that description of our country and of who we are who we were as in the Mundo Maya. And I thank our 2 guests for being with us. It's not every day we get to engage with career archaeologists and such learned men. And so I am grateful. So on that note, I want to wrap up and bring to an end our 3rd episode of the Galen Hour. I thank you for joining us. We'll be here next week. Our time has been moved to 7:30 p.m. Because of the curfew, but it's always a pleasure to be here talking about academic excellence, sustainable development, and lifelong learning. Good night and see you next week.
Mountains rose and fell, watering the western gardens, where our students now excel, reaching higher, sister, brother, ever pacing one another, visions glorious